Hey guys, it's Toby and we're going to be building a gaming PC for £750. Let's go. Alright, first of all we're going to be using the AMD FX 8350. This is an 8-core processor clocked at 4GHz. Now this is arguably one of the best processors in the world right now in terms of price to performance. You get a lot of value for your money here. You get 8 cores at 4GHz, and as well as this you get amazing overclock ability. For example, in this build we can easily overclock to about 4.6 GHz without a problem at all using an aftermarket cooler, which we'll talk about later in the build. And as well as this, if you ever plan on doing anything that's CPU intensive such as video rendering or playing a CPU intensive game such as Metro Last Light, you get much better performance than say like a normal standard quad core processor, as you have 8 cores here. Now let's move on to the motherboard. Here we have an Asus M5A97R 2.0 motherboard. This is a relatively good motherboard in terms of price to performance. You get your usual stuff such as 6 SATA 3.0 ports, a dozen USB 2.0 ports, 4 USB 3.0 ports, your usual PCI Express 2.0 slot. You don't get a 3.0 slot here because no AM3 Plus motherboard supports that. However, there is no bottlenecking from using say a graphics card which will use PCI Express 3.0, as it's really compatible with PCI Express 2.0. And you get your usual stuff like support for 32 gigs of DDR3 RAM and your audio, 7.1 surround sound, all of that stuff. Now the main reason we chose this board is because of its overclock ability. We can easily overclock the FX 8350 to say 4.2, which is its turbo boost clock, to say 4.6, which is what we plan on doing in this build, as you can easily achieve that. Now since we mentioned overclocking, we need to talk about cooling solutions, and here we have the Cooler Master Hyper 212 Evo. This is a 120mm fan and it will sit right above our processor. It's really good as it's really quiet, so you can push this up to like 100% load and it will be running at about 40 to 50 decibels, so that's really quiet. That's relatively about the sound of a whisper. You get really good performance from this CPU cooler, and you can easily overclock to say 4.6, which is again what we plan in this build. And yeah, you get great performance from a relatively cheap CPU cooler. Now let's move on to the graphics cards. Here we have an Asus GTX 770. This is the middle of the line between the 760 and the 780, but despite this you get a lot of great graphical performance from this card. For example, you can play Battlefield 4 at around 60 FPS without a problem at all. Games like Skyrim, Metro Last Light, they will all run perfectly with this card. And also if you're playing something like Minecraft or Skyrim with a lot of mods and texture packs, 2 gigs of GDDR5 will be more than enough for your gaming. An alternative to the GTX 770 is the AMD R9 280X. The R9 280X will give you relatively about the same kind of performance as the GTX 770. Again, most games like Battlefield 4 and everything that we mentioned before run at relatively about the same settings as the GTX 770 without a problem at all. Overall, both cards will give you almost the same kind of performance, so it's really up to you, and you can upgrade to the R9 290X or the GTX 780 in the future. Coming onto the RAM, we're going to be using 8 gigs of G.Skill Ripjaws X. It's clocked at 2133 MHz, which is incredibly fast, and as well as this, it's got good heat spreaders, so you can probably overclock this to say 2.4 GHz, which is 2400 MHz. In the BIOS of the motherboard without a problem at all. In terms of gaming, you're just going to get like a frame or two extra because your RAM is a little bit faster. Coming onto the hard drive, we have a 1TB Western Digital Caviar Blue. This will be more than enough for our games, our music, our movies, our videos, etc. Whatever you want to put in this hard drive, it should be more than enough. If you ever need more, there's also a 2TB model, and if you ever need less than that, there's a 500 gig model. Overall, it's a great hard drive and it's really reliable. Coming onto the power supply, we're going to be using a Corsair CXM 750. This is a 750 watt power supply, and as well as this, it's also modular, which means you can only use the power cables that you need to use and you won't have anything else lying around. Also, it's 80+ bronze certified, which means you're going to get around 90% to 85% power efficiency, which means you're going to get clean and efficient energy. Also, if you plan on throwing in another graphics card in the future, or if you're planning on boosting the overclock, a 750 watt power supply we have here will be more than enough for that. And finally, coming onto the case, we have a Zalman Z12 Plus MIDI tower case. This is a great case, it's designed really well, it's got a window so you can show off your GTX 770 or your R9 280X. And as well as this, it's got good airflow, taking in air from the bottom and the front and exhausting it from the top and the back. Also, it's got front panel USB 3.0, so we can utilize our 3.0 ports on the motherboard. Overall, it's a really nicely designed case and it's a home for the build. And yeah, that's it guys, thanks for listening. Leave us a like if you like this video, leave us some feedback down below in the comments. If you plan on buying any or all of these components, please use the link in our description, which will take you to our website to buy all of the components, as this will really help us grow. Check out all of our other videos as well, we do a lot more than build a PC. And yeah, that's it guys, subscribe for more and we'll catch you next time.